Hey everyone, welcome to Dark Corner Stories. Tonight, I'm sharing a story straight from Reddit. A harrowing, true experience from someone who narrowly escaped the grip of a Satanist cult. This is Jake's story. He was just 19 when it all began. A regular guy looking for excitement. And he found it, but not the way he expected. What you're about to hear is told in Jake's own words. I guess you could say I was pretty naive. I was 19. Just starting to explore nightlife, hitting up clubs and meeting new people. I didn't think much of it when I ran into this group. They were different, charming, mysterious, like they had this energy that pulled you in. There was one guy in particular, Damien. He was charismatic, always seemed to know what to say to make you feel important, like you were part of something bigger. He invited me to hang out after the club one night, and I thought, why not? That first after party wasn't really a party. We went to this dark basement, and the vibe was just weird. There were symbols painted on the walls, pentagrams, strange markings, and candles everywhere. They were chanting something I didn't understand, but they said it was all about self-empowerment and breaking free from society's chains. It sounded edgy, rebellious, cool even. I figured, hey, it's just some weird club people being dramatic. But looking back, that night was the beginning of the nightmare. At first, it wasn't too bad. We hung out, talked about life, philosophy, and Damien always made me feel like I belonged. Slowly, though, they started pulling me away from my friends and family. Damien would say things like, "They don't understand you like we do," or, "We're your real family now." Then came the rituals. They started small. Burning sage, chanting under the moon, that kind of thing. I thought it was just harmless fun, but each ritual got darker. One night, they had me prick my finger and drop blood onto this weird idol. Another time, they burned a lock of my hair while chanting my name. It wasn't until they brought out the goat that I realized how deep I was, and we were in the middle of the woods. Everyone wore cloaks, and the only light came from the candles they carried. They brought out this goat, tied up and terrified, and Damien handed me the knife. I froze. I didn't want to do it, but they surrounded me, chanting, pressuring me, saying it was my initiation. My hands were shaking, but I did it. I still hear the sound sometimes in my dreams. That night, I crossed a line I didn't even know existed. After that, they had me. I was theirs. They started pushing me further, saying I was special, chosen, destined for greatness. But the things they made me do, they only got worse. One night, we broke into a cemetery and dug up a grave. Another time, they had me steal a neighbor's pet for a sacrifice. Every time, I felt like I was losing a piece of myself, but I was too scared to stop. The night didn't start like a nightmare. It never does. It was supposed to be a celebration. Another step in Damien's so-called path to freedom. He said it would be unlike anything we'd ever done before, but he didn't explain what he meant. He never explained things. He just let the mystery draw us in. Looking back, I think that was part of his power, keeping us guessing, always a little unsure but desperate to prove ourselves. We met in the woods, as usual. It was cold. The kind of cold that gets into your bones and makes you wish you'd brought another layer. The fire crackled in the center of the clearing, sending shadows flickering against the trees. There were 8 of us there that night, including Damien. We'd all been with the group for at least a year, except for this one new guy, Nate. He was quiet, always watching, never speaking unless spoken to. He gave me the creeps, honestly. Damien stood by the fire, looking larger than life as he always did, his long coat flaring out like some kind of prophet's robe. He had this way of speaking that made you hang on every word, like he was revealing the secrets of the universe. That night, he told us we were ready for the next stage. "You've all made sacrifices," he said, his voice low and reverent. "Time, energy, your old lives. But tonight, we transcend. Tonight, we claim our freedom." The way he said it made my stomach churn, but I didn't know why. Then I saw her. 2 of the others dragged her out of the darkness. She was tied up, her hands bound in front of her, a dirty blindfold covering her eyes. She was trembling, her breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. When she started crying, it was soft at first, like she was trying not to, but then it built into these wrenching sobs that made my throat close up. Damien told us her name, Sarah. He always used names, like it made everything more personal, more real. He said she was a vessel, a gift. She wasn't struggling, not really, just shaking and pleading, her words a jumbled mess of, "Please, I have a family," and "I don't want to die." I wanted to run. I wanted to scream at Damien, at the others, at myself for being there, but I didn't move. None of us did. Damien handed me the knife first. I remember how heavy it felt, the hilt cool against my sweaty palm. It wasn't like the knife we used for the goats or the chickens. This one was ceremonial, ornate, with strange carvings etched into the blade. Damien's eyes locked onto mine, steady and expectant. "Your turn, Jake," he said. "Lead us." My legs felt like they were sinking into the ground. My hands shook so badly I thought I might drop the knife, but I couldn't seem to let go of it. I looked at Sarah, at her tear-streaked face and quivering lips, and I thought about her family, her parents, maybe a sibling, a boyfriend, waiting for her to come home. I couldn't do it. I didn't even say no. I just shook my head and held out the knife. Damien's expression didn't change. He took it back from me like he'd known all along. I'd fail. "Weakness," he said, shaking his head. But his voice wasn't angry. It was almost patient, like he was disappointed, but not surprised. Then he turned to Nate. I'll never forget the way Nate stepped forward without hesitation, how he gripped the knife with steady hands and looked at Damien like he was waiting for permission. Damien gave him a single nod, and then it happened. It wasn't fast. It wasn't clean. She screamed, and I thought I'd go deaf from the sound. I closed my eyes, but I couldn't block it out. The wet, sickening noises, the gasps, the way her voice went from shrill to ragged to silent. When it was over, Damien told us to kneel. We did. What else could we do? The air felt heavy, thick with the smell of blood and burnt wood. Damien said a prayer, if you can call it that, thanking Sarah for her gift and promising that her sacrifice would not be in vain. I didn't pray. I couldn't even breathe. That night, as I stumbled back to my car, I knew I had to get out. But the thought of leaving, of running, terrified me almost as much as staying. Because Damien was right. No one leaves. And now I know why. It took months of careful planning, but eventually, I got out. I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in years, an old friend from before any of this started. I was terrified they'd reject me, maybe even turn me in. Instead, they just listened. They didn't judge me, didn't ask the questions I was too ashamed to answer. They simply said, "What do you need?" That was the first time I'd felt hope in a long time. I packed what little I had, just a backpack. It wasn't much, but I didn't want to risk leaving any traces behind. My friend arranged a safe place for me to stay, far from the city, far from Damien and the others. A new city, a new name, a chance to start over. The first few weeks were the hardest. I didn't sleep much. Every creak of the floorboards sent me into a panic. Every shadow felt like it had Damien's face hidden inside it. I kept the lights on at night, jumped at every knock on the door. I was sure they'd find me, that someone from the group would show up and drag me back into that nightmare. But they didn't. And over time, I started to breathe again. Healing wasn't a straight line. I'd have days where I felt okay, almost normal, and then something, an innocent conversation, a random sound, would send me spiraling back. The nightmares didn't help. I still see her sometimes, in my dreams. I hear her voice, pleading, asking why I didn't save her. Those nights are the worst, but I keep moving forward, because I have to. I've learned to live with the weight of what happened. It's always there, just beneath the surface, but I've found ways to keep it from consuming me. I've made new connections, built a life that feels real, even if it's fragile. And most importantly, I've found strength in knowing that I broke free, that I survived. If you're hearing this, and you're in a place like I was, a place where you feel trapped, scared, and powerless, I need you to know something. There's a way out. It doesn't feel like it right now, I know. They make you believe that leaving is impossible, that you're too far gone, that no one will help you. But that's a lie. You're not alone. There are people who care, people who will stand by you, even when you can't stand by yourself. I know it's terrifying. I know it feels hopeless. But if I could escape, after everything I did, everything I saw, then so can you. You don't have to stay. You can be free. I promise you, there's still a life waiting for you on the other side. That was Jake's story, a haunting journey into darkness and a powerful reminder of the strength it takes to fight your way out. If you enjoyed this story, or if it gave you chills, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more unsettling tales from Dark Corner Stories. And remember, the scariest monsters are often the ones pretending to be your friends. Until next time, stay safe and keep the lights on.